Let's go in the woods, Buck. Here we go. Okay, I have the phone on a holder so I can hold it and walk. It's a little bit warm today, so I don't know if this ice is going to hold up. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty solid. So out here it's kind of a mix of wetlands and woodlands. There's a lot of icy spots like this, and this is probably, I don't know what it is, maybe a foot deep, you know, this water in some of these icy spots. Other spots maybe just a couple inches. But with it all frozen over in the winter, we can just kind of hike out here. You can see the deer that have been here. This is fresh. This is fresh last night, right here. Tell that's fresh. That's a couple days old. But the deer use these trails that I've kind of carved out of the woods. Originally, the woods are like this. It's all brush and stuff. You couldn't walk through here, but then I've kind of carved out some trails. You can see lots of fresh hoof prints from last night. There. So the deer are out here going back and forth each night. You can see here the ice is not so thick, so just be careful in spots like that. Buck is going ahead of me there a little bit. Let's try and catch up to him. This is melting today because it's above freezing, but it's going to get really cold tonight. This will all refreeze. And it'll be like concrete. I don't know how well it comes out on the camera, but this trail, we've been using this for the last couple of years. It's pretty well defined. Usually I'll bring out a machete and kind of clear away some of the growth from the summer to keep it a nice trail. There is some deer scat. So get caught up to Buck here. This tree came down a couple years ago, and I was going to cut it up for firewood, but I thought it'd be too much work hauling it back. But I should have. Could have cut it up and like taken a little bit at a time, but it's no good now. You can see all the mushrooms growing out of it. It's rotting. Okay, Buck is on top of the hill waiting for his treat, because he always gets a treat at the top of this hill. Buck, come on. Come here, buddy. There he come. Hey, buddy. This is called Christopher's Hill. You really see it, but it says 2015 there. We call this Christopher's Hill because we could see the hill from the house. The house is back there. In the winter when it was snow covered, you could kind of see the hump of the hill. And but I never made it out to the hill because the brush was always so thick in the woods. And so one year Christopher was here in February, and he said he was going to come out here, and I said good luck. But he made it out here following the deer trails. And then as the years went on, I kind of hacked out a trail. And now it's easy to walk out here, but so we call it Christopher's Hill, and we hung a sign. Down there it looks kind of foggy. I think it's just because it's a little bit on the warm side today, and when I say warm, it's above freezing. But Buck, come here, buddy. You didn't get your cookie. So he usually gets a cookie up here. Comes running for his treat. There you go, buddy. You can hear the wind through the pond. I'm not sure why my video stopped, but I restarted it. I was just saying, you can hear the wind through the pines up here. I love that one. That's the only sound you hear. I remember years ago I was working on a house for a guy that was renting it. I used to do that work on the side. I'd go in, and after he turned over a rental, I'd go in and work on it, clean it up, paint a little bit. Did it nights and weekends while I was working my early in my IT career. But he had a house out in Boxford, and I was working on it one day, and I stopped to have my lunch out back, and I just remember listening to the wind through the trees. And I always said, I want to live somewhere like that where I can go out back and listen to the wind through the trees and have that as the only sound that I hear. So that's why I love these woods so much with Buck. And we're going to continue on out to our next landmark in the woods that I call Buck's Rock. So Buck, let's go, buddy. Come on, pal. Let's go. Here we go. Let's go next. Our next stop. But don't get too far ahead of me. Buck's wearing his orange coat. You know, some days it's really cold out here, and so the coat helps keep him a little bit warmer. But it's also important to have the high visibility coat, because sometimes there's hunters out here. A few years ago, a hunter knocked on my door and introduced himself and asked for permission to come into these woods hunting in behind my house. Now, at this point, I'm off my property. My property ends just before we get to Christopher's Hill. But I told him, sure, no problem. He parked over next to my house, and a couple days a week he would come out into the woods, him and his son. And a couple times his dad came with him. But way out here in the woods, they had set up a tree stand There's a lot of deer out here, but evidently he didn't have much luck. And I think he only did that for two seasons. And then he took down his tree stand and moved on. Buck, what do you got there? You find something? Sometimes he finds deer poop and he'll sample it, which is not a good thing for him to do. Just want to make sure he's not doing that. You can hear this ice cracking a little bit, so it's softening up. It was above freezing yesterday. It's above freezing today. But the next few nights it's going to get really cold. So this will all freeze up solid again. And as long as it does that at night, we can hike out here. Okay, so now we're leaving an area of wetlands. And we're coming to kind of an elevated piece of land. It's a huge stand of trees, pine trees. Right behind you, Buck. So this hill now that we're coming up to, there's a large boulder, a glacial boulder at the top of it. And we call that Buck's Rock because we get to the top of this hill and he usually climbs that rock and waits for his next treat. But he's stopping to smell a lot of stuff. Usually he's way ahead of me up on top of this rock long before I get here. But there he goes. He's up there waiting for his treat. Hey, buddy. Here we go. Okay, now here we can see down there's a lot of ice. That's more wetlands down there. But just beyond those wetlands, I come to another elevated piece of land. And there's an old stone wall out there. There's a couple stone walls. But, that stone wall marks the boundary of what was once a meadow or farmland or something, probably back in colonial times. Maybe grazing land for cattle or something like that. But anyway, as the farmers used to plow and clear fields and they hit a stone, they moved it out to the border of their property and created these stone walls. And over the years, nature's reclaimed the meadows and farmland. And that's why you'll see field stone walls running through the middle of the woods in New England. But today that marks the border of Howell Parker State Forest. So beyond that stone wall at the top of that hill over there, you're into State Park. This piece of land that we're cutting through now is currently for sale for $1 million. A real estate holding company has had it for the last 30 years. And they would have been better to develop it when they first had it, because at that time all the wetland rules weren't in place. They could do whatever they want. They could fill wetlands, they could build right up to the wetlands. But since then, back in the 1990s, putting a lot of these wetland rules that prevent you from doing anything near or on wetlands. this ice is not very strong here, so I don't trust it. It can hold buck, but I don't think it's going to hold me, so I'm going to try and... That's why I carry the stick, to probe the ice. You can see there's a lot of water here. It's melting a lot today. I think where we are here, this is maybe a good 2 feet deep or so. No, a foot deep. Yeah, it's not that deep. So. You can see some of my frozen footprints from the last week or so. Been out here a couple other days. Okay. It's getting a bit sketchy there. Okay. Coming, pal. All right. You want to keep going? You want to keep going that way? Okay. So in years past, I could hike out in these woods all day long. I'd come out here for many hours at a time. But I hate to say it, but Father Time is catching up with me. This tree fell like 2 years ago, kind of across our path. But Father Time is catching up with me now, so that I just don't have the same stamina that I used to have. So usually I end our hikes at the stone wall that marks the border of Harold Parker State Forest, and we turn around and go back. I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is a pretty good hill here. Pretty steep at this point. I'm coming back. And I don't often see deer out here, even though you see deer trail, deer tracks, and scat. And that's because they know you're coming long before you see them. Sorry, just catching my breath. The hike up that hill is a bit of work. But the deer know we're coming long before we know they're there. But one thing you do experience sometimes is you can smell the deer. You can smell a buck. Sometimes when they're a good distance off, it's a very musty, strong odor. In the last couple days, I've smelled them. You know, I see them in the yard around the house at night. Hello, buck. I know what you're waiting for, but we don't have any more. We're going to have to go wait until we get back to the house to have a treat. But here is the border of the state forest. This stone wall. And my phone is telling me that my battery is dying, so my screen is kind of dying. So I'm not sure if it's still recording, but let's just come over here just so I can grab one thing. Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Forest boundary, Harold Parker State Forest. So now this is all Harold Parker State Forest on the other side of this fieldstone wall. But that piece of land that's for sale, I'm not sure that anything will ever be done with it because there is so much wetlands and all of the wetland rules. And there's no access to the land. You'd have to buy a house out on Berry Street and tear it down to make a road to come in here. Buck, come on back. Buddy, we're not going any further today. Come on. Buck, come on. All right, so we're going to head back now. I'm going to end the video here because my phone battery is dying. And I think it just died.